So, welcome to book 42, week 42. We're back to pension with Inherent Vice. This is his book from 20. I put the cover on backwards. This is his book from 2009, um, but it's set in 1970. Um, Inherent Vice, the only Thomas Pynchon book so far to have been made into a movie. The the movie Inherent Vice. Um, so what can we say about this book? Well, this is set in California, in Gordito Beach, and it stars Doc. Let's see, Larry or Lawrence Doc Sportello, who is a kind of private detective. I guess he's a private detective. And he is given a series of connected quests to, well, the first one comes from his ex girlfriend, Shasta Faye Hepworth. And Shasta has been having an affair with a guy named Wolfman. Wolfman is one of these rich financiers, kind of in rarity types that Pynchon uses all the time as sort of, figures of all kinds of intrigue and paranoia and power. Shasta's been having an affair with this guy with the knowledge of this guy's wife. So this guy's wife and um, her new boyfriend, because she's cheating on her husband, of course. Well, they want to put Wolfman maybe in a insane asylum. Maybe they want to sideline him. Maybe they want to blackmail him. Maybe they want to off him. It's not clear. But uh, Shasta wants Doc to find out what's going on. So she shows up at his house and asks him to do this. And he agrees. So he goes over to the development that Wolfman was working on, and there's some typical Pynchon weirdness going on with this. But he gets head over the head, and when he wakes up, he's laying next to a guy named Glenn Charco, who has been offed. And then the police bad guy, uh, Bigfoot, beyond Christian Bjorgensen. Christian Bigfoot Bjorgensen appears, and he takes Doc in for questioning. Can't get anything out of him, basically, because Doc doesn't know anything. Doc had no idea what happened to Sherlock. He was not involved, at least as far as he knows. Now, and this is where this book really kind of shines in its Punchonian weirdness. Is everybody in this book, particularly Doc? I mean, I think the guy smokes a joint every single scene, sometimes several, and many of the other characters do so as well. It's kind of a rite of passage of um, how they cope with the world and how they sort of interact with each other um, in terms of ice breaking and trust and that sort of thing. Um, So anyway, Doc starts looking more into this, and it all gets connected to something called the Golden Fang. And what is the Golden Fang? Well, it's a boat. It is a drug operation. It is a group of dentists. It is related to a spa, a place for nutcases such as Wolfman supposedly is. It's all these things and more. And so it takes on a kind of Tristero Chisturo kind of reality of being everything or anything to everyone, and also kind of very much like a Moby Dick kind of thing as well, kind of a white whale. And so, that's kind of some of the debt that Pynchon has here to uh, both his own book, The Crying Aloud 49, which is pretty much resembles to some extent, and then with um, Moby Dick and this entire search for a white whale or some kind of unifying signifier that's going to explain everything. Um, and of course, in typical Pynchon fashion, everything connects back to Wolfman. Everything connects back to Shasta. There's a guy, Harlington. Coy Harlington may or may not be dead. He's a well-known sax player in the area, and his wife is looking for him because he has disappeared. Shasta disappears. She gets apparently on the Golden Fang boat and winds up in some kind of Pacific island. Maybe, not for sure what happens to her. Wolfman apparently is been doing some drugs and gone wacky from the point of view of a capitalist, and is offering this free housing development, on which construction has stalled outside of Vegas. We find about that about halfway through the book. So that's basically what happens here: is that Doc gets increasingly involved in this weird kind of search for maybe what happens to Wolfman, maybe what happens to Shasta, maybe what happens to Coy, maybe what happens to that other character. Glenn Sharlock was involved with Aryan Brotherhood in jail, and a black man, Tariq, who was also in jail at the time, did business with Sharlock. They discovered they both hated the government, but otherwise were very much at odds with each other. And now that they're both out, Tariq wants his share of the money or whatever it is that Glenn Sharlock was supposed to provide for him. So Glenn Sharlock comes back in that way, and again, all through the book, these various connections that Pynchon makes lead to other connections and other weirdnesses. Um, even the beginning when he goes to see about meeting Wolfman at these estates, he winds up in this kind of massage parlor where a woman, Jade, and a woman, Bambi, offer him a certain kind of special, which I prefer not to say here because it's a little more adult than I want to get into. And he gets a free sample because he's a PI, and it's the two women basically go to town on each other. And then Jade and Bambi show up later in the book needing help, along with a pair of stewardesses, which Pynchon is calling Steward I. And this kind of, juvenile humor. I mean, you would think that at this point in his career, Pynchon would be above this kind of stuff, but no. I will have to say, though, that unless I missed it, there is no real character here who's into, the underage girls. I might have missed it. Pynchon just includes it in everything, so it's probably there somewhere, but I didn't see it. But I think the overall impression you get from this book is everyone's smoking a lot of pot. So what actually happens is Wolfman shows up again, not really sure where he'd been exactly. 3 people are killed, Sherlock being one of them, another guy connected to Sherlock being another one of them, and some other guy, I don't remember who. Shasta shows up again and says she's been one place, but appears to have come from another place. She shows up at Sportello's place wearing, quote, flatland gear or straight people gear, whereas before she was part of this sort of bum kind of reality and wore a Country Joe and the Fish T-shirt with bikini bottoms as her main clothing. She goes back to that again and shows up in the neighborhood again. And so things cycle, but things cycle with a change. There is that moment where everybody disappears, or everybody who Doc thinks he knows changes. And is that a product of the amount of pot he smokes? Is it a part of this overall conspiracy going on? It's never clear. And essentially, things just sort of peter out to nothing. Wolfman's reappeared, Shasta's reappeared, Sharlock is still dead. Coy, who becomes kind of a central figure in Pynchon searching for Doc searching for things. Coy apparently faked his own death, got off of heroin, which he was addicted to, and worked for the government for a while, and then came back and started playing again with the bands he was playing with. So everything goes back to normal with a change, and that's kind of a Pynchonian thing. Okay, so what's this book really about? Is this change from 1969 to 1970, and the growing disillusionment with the counterculture, and this is prefigured by Manson, who does not appear in the book, but is a constant background. His trial is going on at the time, and although he doesn't seem to have a fetish for young kids, Sportello, Doc, does seem to have a bit of a fetish for the Mason girls. And so Leslie Van Houten and Squeaky are mentioned a few times as, figures he's attracted to. So, okay. So this book kind of serves as a weird kind of almost sort of thematic trilogy with the Crime 49 and Vineland, and then now Inherent Vice. Vineland is kind of a weird one because it's both late 60s and moves into the mid 80s. This book stays very much in 1970. So, like Crime 49, it doesn't move in time anywhere. And there are, at least on the surface, almost no direct connections to any of the other books. Some of the characters in Vineland are mentioned briefly as having, been related to some of the characters in this one. But I think that's about it. So, yet again, this is another one of these when things change kind of books. And this time it's when things change from the promise of the 60s to sort of the crackdown of the 70s. This is, again, just like Vineland was during Reagan's period. This is Nixon. This is Nixon's presidency. And that is very much part of what's going on here is this crackdown on the possibilities of the openness. But it's very much muted. It's very much in the background. What we mostly have here is kind of a fractured detective story. Okay. So this is the second time I've read Inherent Vice, and I've seen the movie, but I don't remember it very well. I'm going to watch the movie again probably tonight and give you a report on that soon. And I like this book. It's different for Pynchon. It's very linear compared to most of his other stuff, and the things that happen in here that are otherworldly. Uh, it's a product of the weirdness of the 60s combined with the drugs, maybe. And there aren't any real crazy, crazy, crazy things. I think at one point, Bjornson speaks to Doc from TV, but that's related to him being in a dream state or perhaps high. And there are a couple other moments similar where people hallucinate or see things. But again, it's prefigured as deliberately a dream state or as being high, being on some kind of drug. Um, and then there's the overwhelming paranoia. Golden Fang does seem to represent all these kinds of things. So that is, kind of like I said, the Tristero of this book. It's kind of everywhere and everything, but at the same time seems to be nothing. Uh, so, hmm, Inherent Vice. Yeah, I'd recommend it. It's short. It's linear. It's what just under just under 400 pages, 369. Very readable, very straightforward. And if you have trouble understanding it, there's always the movie to watch, which I'll tell you this much about the movie. At least the first 15 or 20 minutes of it, almost all the dialogue and all the voiceover are straight word for word from the book. And the scenes that it shows are straight scenes from the book in the linear order they happen in the book. So very interesting. I think it's worth a watch. I'll let you know. All right, worth a read. Inherent Vice, Thomas Pynchon.